Hi, good day everyone. This is Sir Jet and welcome to another episode of the Contemporary World. Today, we will visit the continent of Europe. We will see a little snapshot what goes on in that place. This is part of the series called Snapshots of the World. And by the end of this series, we will put together all our knowledge on the snapshots and we will have a big picture of the contemporary world. So now let's go and visit Europe. So Europe is a small continent and it's beside Asia and it's north of Africa. All right. And although it has a very small land area, it has a lot of countries in it. Okay, and it's near the North Pole, so it's very cold in Europe. And you have there familiar countries like Spain, France, United Kingdom or UK. Russia is also part of this continent of Europe. Of course, Germany and Italy. Maybe you have a lot of relatives living or working in that continent. Now, the issues that we will be talking about Europe is their problem of their diminishing population and their aging population. So maybe I can call this lecture Europe, the diminishing continent or the fading continent. And why did I say that? Okay, why is Europe called the fading continent? What is the meaning of diminishing population? So let's talk about it. Diminishing population means that the European population is fast disappearing. They are fading away. They are dying and nobody is replacing them. You get it? The Europeans grow old. When they die, there are no children to take their place in the population. Now, why is that so? Because, in Europe, there are many couples who decide that they would not have babies. It's their choice not to have babies. They can have babies. They have the ability, they have the biological powers to make babies, but they decide not to have babies. There are many European couples, middle-aged or young couples, who decide on that. Why? Because for them, the good life is the life that the two of them only enjoy. They see children as a sort of a distraction or a disturbance to the good life. Maybe they don't like taking care of babies, changing diapers, breastfeeding, working so hard to bring them to school, and so many other hassles of childbearing and child rearing. And so they just decide that it's just gonna be them forever, okay, till they die, just husband and wife, no children. Besides, they want to be the best versions of themselves in their careers. They want to be the best scientist or the best businessman or the best whatever, okay? And having babies could be an obstacle for them to reach their personal career goals. And that's not just a few couples thinking that way, but a lot of couples in Europe thinking that way. Not only in one country, but in many countries in Europe. So you have here a magazine which says that the child-free life. Time magazine is a very popular magazine. And the subtitle says, when having it all means not having children. Okay, so that's what they think. That's their opinion. You can just respect them for their opinion. You want to debate with them, then debate with them. But you know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and they say it's our life anyway. So you shouldn't bother. Or they would say to you, mind your own business. Okay, and here's a book, okay, which says that two is enough. A couple's guide to living childless by choice. See, there are many couples in the Philippines who are childless, but it's not by choice. Maybe they are trying, but they are just not getting blessed with children. But in Europe, it's by choice, and we have here even a book that will help you out on how to manage the childless life by choice. So they are like that because of too much career orientation. Children are a hindrance to their careers, so no children for them. Now, what happens if so many people, or almost all of the people in a country, decide to be childless? So you have to look forward decades from the present. So right now, you see a lot of people still in those countries, like in Germany, in France. Okay, they are in the malls, they are in the universities, in the streets. That's right now. But fast forward, say half a century from now, things would be very different. Now, what we have here on the screen is what I call a population pyramid. Okay? Now, this is a tool that social scientists use to analyze the society or to analyze a country in terms of their population. Let's focus on this first. Okay? The traditional triangle or pyramid. It's called the population pyramid because it is shaped like a pyramid. And you have one side the males, on the other side are the females. Okay? Now the base of the triangle represents the young people, the children. And so in 1910, in Germany, there are a lot of children. Now the middle part of the pyramid is the middle-aged population. Okay, those who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. While the peak of the triangle represents the aged or the senior citizens. And so they are few. Okay, isn't it that the Philippines also has the same structure? There are so many children, lots of them, and this is the working group, your mother and father, and then this is the grandfathers and grandmothers. So, why are they few? Because they're dying. Okay? Years later, okay, they will grow old, their bodies would deteriorate, and then they die. So they are just few in the population. Middle-aged and children. Okay? This is in 1910. Now, if say the people here would decide not to have children, so this group over here would grow. Okay, the triangle, the pyramid would rise, and the base would be the new generation of babies growing up. Now, what if this base would be zero? Because the people who decided not to have babies would not put people or babies below them. And this is what will happen. Okay? This is the original base. Okay, this part over here is this now. Okay, so the ones who are 0 to 10 years old before, they are now in their 30s or 40s. Okay, and then the old people, they die. The middle aged, this is now the middle aged. And then the base is no longer like this. Okay, it's no longer like this. There's a missing piece because these are the people who are supposed to have been born, but their parents decided uh, not to have babies, and so there is now a gap. Okay, or there is now a big chunk of what could have been a wide base of the population. That's in 2005, by the way, and in 2025, years from now, the pyramid would be narrower and narrower. And give it some more decades, okay, this would rise up like a balloon, and the base would be empty. 0 to 10 years old, that would be empty. Just white, pure white. And the whole population would rise like a balloon. Give it a century later, nobody's having children. They would be an extinct nation, an extinct people. That's the population pyramid. Okay? It helps us determine, or it helps us see what will happen in the future if the people decide to be childless. Okay? Now, what happens in the Philippines is the opposite. Our base becomes wider and wider every year. Wider and wider and wider. And so 50 years from now, our population would be double or more than double. And we would have a very gigantic base for our population pyramid if we don't control our population. But in Europe, it's the other way around. So nobody would replace the old people, and the worst case would be a population wipeout. That is the problem in Europe. Okay, now what is their stopgap solution? They naturalize citizens from poor countries, from their former colonies. Okay, because once upon a time, these European countries ruled the world. No, that's the Spaniards. They built an empire. The French, the British, and so these former colonies now are the third world, or they are poor countries now, overpopulated, and the Europeans welcome them to Europe to add to their population because they're diminishing. They needed people to be in the labor force in Europe. They couldn't just be extinct just like that. So, but they don't want to have babies, so they just get in, or they just invite people to live in their country and be naturalized citizens of that country. One of which, let's take the case of this guy. You know him? He's called the Greek Freak. He's a basketball player. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Doesn't sound very Greek. Doesn't look Greek because he's an African. His original country is Nigeria. And his family migrated to Greece, became Greek citizens, and so he's called the Greek Freak. He became a national basketball player of Greece, and now he's playing in the NBA. Now, if you see the national team of France, how many of them look French? Very few. Most of them look Africans, okay? Because they are, or their parents are from Africa. Migrated to France, gained French citizenship, and so they are representing France. in the Olympics. I think they won the silver medal in the Tokyo Olympics, this bunch of guys. But as you can see, they don't look very French. The ethnic French, the one I'm talking about. Okay, so you know the French people, their skin color is so different from the people representing their country right now. Now, this guy, this tall guy, he's 7 feet tall. His name is Dirk Nowitzki. He's from Germany, and he's married to a Swedish model. Yes, the lady is a Swede. Okay? She's from Sweden. But as you can see, she doesn't look like an ethnic Swede person, because the Swedish people have blonde hair, light skin, because Nowitzki's wife is actually from Kenya, a country in Africa. And she and her family migrated to Sweden, gained citizenship there, worked there as a model, and now she's Mrs. Dirk Nowitzki. And it's all over Europe. You know, there are so many people from different parts of the world, many from Africa actually, that are now technically Europeans. So that's how Europe looks like these days. The original Europeans are slowly diminishing, and in their places are people from all over the world, mostly from Africa. And they are also now called Europeans. Okay? Because many elect not to have children. Now, let's have a topic that is quite connected to what I'm talking about. Let's talk about the baby boomers. Okay? And it's about the aging population of Europe. So aside from diminishing, they are also aging. Now, what do I mean by that? Most of the people in Europe these days are from the baby boom generation. What is the baby boom generation? After World War II, Europe had very few people because Europe was the center of the war, and so many people were killed, civilians, soldiers. Millions died, and the population got depleted. So the governments of the European countries encouraged family planting. Not family planning, but family planting. That means have more and more children. Okay? If you're a married couple, have 10 children if you want. Because they needed people to be back in the labor force, to be in the farms, to be in the factories, to be in the offices. They needed people. So there was family planting from 1945 to 1950, and maybe up to 1960. You can extend that generation. And so the babies born in that period of time are called the baby boomers because there was a baby boom during those years. Now, if you're born in 1945 to 1960, how old are you now? You must be a senior citizen by now. So the baby boomers are now the senior citizens of today. They are in their senior years. Okay, the once upon a time babies are now the grandfathers or grandmothers of Europe. And if you're that old, you cannot really take care of yourself very well. You would need nurses and personal caregivers, and you have to be in a retirement home because their children are so career oriented, they don't want to take care of an old parent at home. So they would just send their parents to an institution or a retirement home. And anyway, that's their lifestyle, that's their culture. Not unlike in the Philippines, wherein we keep our uh, lolo, our lola, in our home. We don't bring them to an institution, and they got cared by people who are not relatives. So anyway, so there's a large demand of or large demand for nurses and caregivers in Europe today. Okay, and so uh, that's the reason why there are many Asians working in Europe as caregivers and nurses. Filipinos, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis. Okay? Um, they work there. Indonesians also. No? They work there taking care of the old Europeans. And here's a classic movie by Sharon Cuneta, or starring Sharon Cuneta. It's called The Caregiver. Have you seen that movie? And so maybe you have relatives or friends. Me, I have relatives and friends who are nurses in Europe, in Ireland, and in the United Kingdom, in UK. And I also know some people who, I also have some friends who wanted to be nurses in Germany. Everybody among us has at least one friend or relative who is already there, or who is planning to be in Europe to be a caregiver or a nurse. And soon they would replace these ethnic Europeans in the population. One day, all these old people will die, maybe 10, 20 years from now. And the caregivers would have been living so long in Europe, they must have been citizens already by that time also. And so these Asians would be the new Europeans. Okay? Their job brought them there. They stayed there for so long, and most of them uh, would decide to live there for good. And so the concept of who is a European would evolve. Many years from now, when you say European, it it can mean, or a European would look Asian or African, but the ethnic Caucasian Europeans would be very, very few or rare in the continent of Europe. So the question that we pose as we end this discussion is that are the Europeans really an endangered species? What do you think? These are the real Europeans, the ethnic Caucasian Europeans, from Mr. Bean, from England, and the Gasol brothers. They are Spaniards. And we have here some Norwegian fans, and some German girls having fun drinking their favorite drink. These are the original Europeans, but years from now, we might have a new concept of who is a European. So, I hope you enjoyed our little snapshot of Europe. We have seen a little issue of what is happening in that little continent over there near the North Pole. And in our next meeting, we will visit another continent, another snapshot. So this is Sir Jet saying goodbye and thank you.